Alright guys, how's it going? I can't recall exactly when I first realised that AMD's next strategy was to go all in on cloud gaming, but it was at some point last year. I do recall after January's CES, where the company's CEO, Lisa Su, showed a demo of Assassin's Creed Odyssey running on Google's Project Stream, powered by AMD Radeon Pro GPUs, that I was by that point certain of this strategy. I was actually talking about it on my Patreon Discord a month ago, previous to which I'd already told AMD that we being PC gamers, would flat out resist any such move to the cloud. And I was also chatting to Chris, good old gamer Chris, about the very same topic a day before we learned exactly what that move to the cloud would entail. Before we talk about the end result of Google's Project Stream, let's first of all cover the same topic discussed at an event a couple of days earlier, Nvidia's GPU Technology Conference. I've covered this event a few times in the recent past, however, it's all getting pretty samey, and I didn't bother this year. Or at least, I hadn't bothered. Now, however, I am covering a small part of it. That part started at the 49-minute mark when Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, started talking about Geforce Now, Nvidia's game streaming service, which is currently in the beta phase.
We've been working on Geforce Now for a few years. In fact, we've been working on it for about 6 years. And the reason we've been working on it is because it turns out that the vast majority of the gamers in the world don't have access to a powerful graphics card. We have some 200 million GeForce gamers in the world, and they're growing. But yet, there's another billion PC gamers that don't have the necessary computer or don't have a GeForce card to be able to play the games at the level that they should.
So there are 200 million GeForce users, but another billion PC gamers who don't have access to a powerful enough graphics card for playing games at a reasonable quality level. He's basically talking about people on Intel integrated graphics, or really old graphics cards. The next passage was very interesting to me.
And so we decided several years ago that we would create a cloud gaming system. Not a service, not a store. It's not the Netflix of gaming. It's an open platform so that all the developers get to keep all their economics. All it is a PC in the cloud.
Not a service, not a store. It's not the Netflix of gaming. It's an open platform so that all the developers get to keep their own economics. Make no mistake about it. Nvidia would love nothing more than to be the Netflix of gaming, and for their CEO to talk about open platforms is a joke, given Nvidia are one of the most closed proprietary companies in the world. The only reason Geforce Now isn't a service or a store is because Nvidia currently lacks the infrastructure and influence to make it one. But as you'll see later, that point on developers keeping their own economics was an aimed shot at Google's soon-to-be-announced competitor.
Geforce Now has over 500 games. We have 15 data centers. About 300,000 users, players are using it all the time now. We've been in beta for some time, and there's 1 million gamers on the waiting list. 1 million gamers on the waiting list.
Impressive numbers to some degree. However, they are all a far cry from the 1 billion underserved PC gamers he talked about earlier. There are real technical and logistical reasons for this.
And what we've discovered is this. You could build the world's largest data center, it won't make any difference. You've got to build a whole bunch of data centers all over the world. And it turns out that the number of gamers around the world is quite large. And they're spread out all over the world. And so what we need to do is we need to come up with a system that allows us to go well beyond these 15 data centers to support these 300,000 gamers, but to find a way to reach all of the edges of the world through partnerships. And so we created this idea called the Geforce Now Alliance.
And so, introducing the Geforce Now Alliance, currently consisting of only 2 allies. First of all, SoftBank in Japan, who were recently embroiled in the fallout over the murder of a Saudi journalist before they dumped all of their shares in Nvidia, a little too late last month. And as we can see from this slide, SoftBank's previous investments haven't exactly been inspired. However, their CEO, Masayoshi Son, is a technologist who firmly believes in the future of artificial intelligence. The second ally is LGU+, who are LG Corporation's cellular carrier. So Nvidia, rather than building more of their own infrastructure around the world, have opted for the easier, less expensive strategy of piggybacking on others instead.
Our strategy is to put these alliances, set them up in countries all over the world. And they would have data centers, multiple data centers, with Geforce Now servers, and we will host a service and maintain the service for everybody.
And of course, let's not forget in all of this that Nvidia is a GPU company, and the point of this service is to sell RTX servers. At this point of the presentation, we also finally got a mention of Mellanox, the company Nvidia just acquired for $7 billion, which will be paid in cash. $7 billion won't be far off the profit Nvidia made on gaming cards during the Pascal years. The point of all this?
The first chapter ends here, and it's about the fact that graphics is both, number one, going to go to the next level. It's going to also go into the data center.
Graphics are going into the data center. Project Stream was clearly simply the test run for something much grander in scale. But it wasn't until last Tuesday that we began to understand the scope of Google's cloud gaming ambitions when they introduced Stadia, promising to build a gaming platform for everyone.
And when we say for everyone, we really mean it. But if you think about games, there are a lot of barriers for users to play high-end games. Beautiful graphics really need high-end consoles or PCs.
So, pretty much a repeat of what we heard Nvidia's CEO say the day before. That was the last time both of these cloud gaming services appeared to be in the same league, however, as Google proceeded to roll out one industry behemoth after another while demonstrating what Stadia was really all about. I'll take a look at the highlights.
Imagine you are watching games on YouTube and you discover the latest Assassin's Creed Odyssey trailer on Ubisoft's official channel on YouTube. You will notice the Play Now button. By simply clicking on that button, the player is brought directly into the game in a browser in as quick as 5 seconds, with no download, no patch, no update, and no install. Stadia offers instant access to play. Our platform vision for Stadia is to reduce the friction between getting excited about a game and playing a game. On Stadia, you just need to click on a YouTube video or link, and you can be playing your game instantly. Compare that to today, where gamers are all too familiar with things like this. With Stadia, this waiting game will be a thing of the past.
I'll discuss the ramifications of this at the end of the video.
This new generation of gaming is not a box. With Stadia, the data center is your platform. There is no console that limits the developer's creative ideas and no console that limits where gamers can play. And we're about to show this to you now. This is not a concept, it's not a test, this is real. So imagine you've just discovered that game for the first time, you're running it on the Chrome browser, and here it is on a Pixelbook running the Chrome OS. There is basically no hardware acceleration on that laptop whatsoever, and the game is running directly from our data center. It's then easy and instantaneous to move that same game experience from exactly that moment onto the phone.
The game demonstration then proceeded on seamlessly to phone, tablet, and finally a TV. Moving on, and we learn that any or most controllers will work under Stadia. However, Google have created their own controller, designed to get the most out of the service. It can identify what device you're currently playing on and then links it with your game session on the cloud. The controller also has a capture and share button which can be used for instantly streaming your gameplay to YouTube. But what about the infrastructure behind the service? We learned that Nvidia's strategy will be to sell servers to carrier allies around the globe and deliver the Geforce Now service on their 5G networks. Google, however, already have a huge data center network in place and are estimated to have over 1 million servers worldwide.
We've built Stadia's architecture on top of the Google data center network. the same network that has been delivering search results to your fingertips in milliseconds for more than 20 years. The network consists of fiber optic links and subsea cables between hundreds of points of presence and more than 7,500 edge node locations around the globe, all connected with our network backbone. Stadia is built on infrastructure that no one else has.
And that's a particularly compelling argument here, as Google already has the backbone capable of serving every market in place. 5G will not roll out worldwide until some point in 2020. A bit later on, and they made the claim of up to 8K resolution and 120 FPS streaming. At launch, they expect 4K 60 frames per second, though exactly what both will look like after being compressed for the streaming process is anyone's guess. There will apparently be two 4K 60 frames per second simultaneous streams from the data center, allowing for gameplay while sharing directly to YouTube. Next up, a partnership which for some reason came as a surprise to many analysts.
We've partnered with our friends at AMD to build a custom GPU. I'd like to personally thank Dr. Lisa Su, AMD President and CEO, who is here with us today. Lisa and her team helped us design a chip to bring you more than 10 teraflops of power, which we've coupled with a custom CPU to make up a single Stadia instance.
Over the past few days, Twitter has been united in head-scratching over what these specs mean. At first glance, the GPU looks like a pretty standard Vega 56 with marginally higher clock speeds, but that's not the kind of thing you do in a data center. The most likely answer is they are using the same Radeon Pro cards as during Project Stream, and the specs most closely fit to the Radeon Pro V340, which is a dual 56 compute unit card with 32GB of HBM2. A quick look over at the memory specs shows that each instance has 16GB of total RAM, so that does appear to fit, if you imagine one card split between two users at any one time. However, over at Ars Technica, they got a fact sheet from Google which said the total memory is 16GB combined VRAM and system RAM. So 8GB of HBM2 and 8GB DDR4. And Google also stated that they were using a custom GPU, so not one that's available anywhere else. If you put all that together, then Occam's razor says that this custom GPU is simply a V340, except with only half of this 32GB of HBM2. 16GB instead of 32. That there would be a large saving per card, and given the use case, it would make an awful lot of sense. The CPU specs though were a bit baffling. The only details we got were custom x86 processor. There were no core counts provided, but we get a clock speed of 2.7 GHz. Hyper-threaded, which is an Intel trademark, and finally AVX2. The hyper-threaded part is enough of a giveaway to know that it must currently be an Intel CPU. And some eagle-eyed viewers noted that while Intel weren't mentioned by voice at any point during the stream, the subtitles betrayed a hidden agenda. The memory speeds of up to 484GB per second transfer speed again matches the V340. Bizarrely, Google have noted 9.5 megabytes of L2 and L3 cache. I would consider all of these to be non-final specs, and I would strongly suspect that the servers will be upgraded with 7nm Vega and 7nm Zen 2 before too long. The lengths that they went to trying not to mention Intel was just weird. And note also that upgrading to 7nm Vega may not increase performance here, as the V340 has a boost clock of 1500 MHz, which is pretty likely to be how Google got to this 10.7 teraflops of power. However, I'd be fairly surprised if it runs at that clock speed 24/7, especially with this passive cooling. 7nm Vega though will do that without breaking sweat, while also saving on power. No huge surprise on the choice of operating system or graphics API. However, it's quite telling to see Unreal, a staunch Nvidia ally, partnering with Google so early on. And of course, where Unreal goes, Unity goes too. Around the 48-minute mark, we saw a demonstration of how the graphics quality can be increased by using multiple GPUs. It didn't blow me away, to be frank. However, I suspect this may be one way Google can upsell Stadia accounts to higher tiers, by offering access to 2 or more GPUs.
When we designed Stadia, our goal was to solve many of the pain points that we've heard about from developers, particularly those related to multiplayer. In traditional platforms, the client and server are connected by the unpredictable internet, and therefore the multiplayer experience is limited by the client with the slowest or poorest quality connection. But with Stadia, that game client and server both remain on Google's networking backbone, resulting in predictable low latency, reliable connectivity, and data security, since no traffic gets exposed to the public internet. Developers who use Google's data centers can create a predictable multiplayer experience that scales to an order of magnitude greater than anything enjoyed by gamers today. What that means is a synchronized state across a very high volume of players, where innovations like distributed physics can be built into your games, where battle royale games could go from hundreds of players today to thousands of players tomorrow. And yes, no cheating and no hacking.
Now, there were some pretty bold claims in that passage. First of all, let's look at the latency issue. There is simply no way to avoid the additional latency from having a game streamed to you from a data center. Regardless of how close to you it is, it will always be much higher than playing directly on a PC in front of you. That's the major trade-off here. And while it's true that in normal multiplayer games, the person with the slowest connection will be something of a bottleneck, the server does its best to find a decent midway point between the players, so most of us never notice. If you're coming from a high-end PC gaming though, a lot of what you play on Stadia will likely feel sluggish. Some numbers going around show between 60 and 70 milliseconds of latency for mouse and keyboard, that was in the new Doom game, and 90 to 100 milliseconds for controller in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That's actually pretty decent for streamed games. It's just never going to be on par with a PC. The second bold claim was no cheating and no hacking. Games will undoubtedly be much more difficult to hack due to being wholly hosted on Google servers and not exposed to the public internet. However, cheats exist today which can analyse video output and target players much faster than any human could possibly do. Aimbots, for example. So how can Google prevent that? One possible way would be from using AI. Google are one of, if not the main drivers of AI, or machine learning, and they certainly know what human beings are capable of, so something like aimbot detection should be elementary, and could be built into every Stadia platform game as standard. It shouldn't exactly be difficult for an AI to check if somebody was performing just a little bit beyond what a human was capable of. But still, I would wait and see how that claim pans out. The final half hour of the Stadia presentation was filled with demonstrations of what is currently and what will be possible on the platform. Let's finish this part of the video by taking a brief look at some of it. Tangent Games have been working on a persistent multiplayer, massively destructible world created in only a few short weeks. And that was a fairly interesting looking demo. Split screen gaming has died out somewhat, and even though the last game I played like that was Mario Kart, I think, that's the original Mario Kart, it is certainly an enjoyable way to game socially. Google appears to be bringing this feature back to the fore with their Stream Connect feature, where they demoed a 2-player asymmetric co-op demo called The Night Forest. With each screen powered by a separate Stadia instance, dynamic squad-based gameplay should be within easy reach. Imagine a co-op game where you have your own character on your main screen, one of your friends' instances running on your phone, another on a tablet, or perhaps you're like me and have a triple screen set up already. And it doesn't end there. Not only can you see another person's instance, but you can interact with another person's instance. The potential for team-based gameplay here is incredible. It was right at this moment when I realised what we were seeing was a game changer. Up until now, streaming services like Geforce Now simply meant playing the same games at lower quality and higher latency on a TV. Now the streams become part of the game engine, and multiplayer will never be the same again. Google takes machine learning very seriously, but they've also discovered gaming uses. Next up was Style Transfer ML. Start with a grey box world, throw any image on top of it, and you have instant art styles. Now, to be frank, I doubt we'll see this used in many final games. However, as a developer tool, it could be a real time saver while helping to bring a project to life much faster than normal. There are many game programmers out there being held back by a lack of artistic talent and time. The final demonstration was of a feature called State Share, again a feature enabled by the cloud. With this, a developer could create a game in which the game state, basically the position including the level and all the variables of the game at that point in time, could be saved and then sent to another person as a link, at which point they would pick up the game at that exact point in time. As we saw at the start, we'd likely be looking at only 5 seconds after clicking the link. Not just the same game, but the same point in the game with a different person who could literally be anywhere on Earth. Again, this opens up a whole new world of opportunities for multiplayer or co-op. And for those who still believed Stadia is the next Google Plus rather than the next YouTube, the creation of Google's own first-party game studio, Stadia Games and Entertainment, headed by Jade Raymond, previously of Electronic Arts and Ubisoft Studios, should be enough to dispel any doubts, at least concerning Google's intentions.
Today, you have seen some incredible tech. And hopefully, like me, you now believe that we're on the brink of a huge revolution in gaming.
And now, for the final part of this video, I'll analyse what this huge gaming revolution means for various parties. So let's start this by looking at a typical game streaming business model. If we use Geforce Now, in fact, currently in beta, there is no charge to play. Perhaps Nvidia will be content to sell RTX servers and bring gaming to at least some of those billion gamers they talked about that aren't gaming on high-end PCs. But even if they won't charge for the service, the 5G carriers will. Game streaming hasn't taken off because, as I said earlier, you only get to play games you've already bought, yet with lag and worse graphics on even a mid-range PC. Is there really a large market for gamers who will pay a subscription on top of the game cost for that? There will be a market, but it's nowhere near the billion gamers Nvidia is talking about. The only reason they have 1 million waiting on Geforce Now is because it's currently free. The service will need to be paid for somehow. So where's the difference with Google Stadia? Well, there are a few major differences. First is simply the network backbone which Google owns themselves already. They own more servers than anyone except possibly Microsoft and are in a different league entirely to Nvidia or any single network carrier. That's why Nvidia is creating an alliance of carriers, because they can't possibly compete with Google's enormous size. The problem with alliances though is they can be broken just as easily as they are made. And well, there are many reasons why Nvidia has few real friends in the technology world, but their penchant for backstabbing their allies is the main one, I'm quite sure. Google started the presentation by stating that Stadia was focused on gamers, inspired by developers, and amplified by YouTube creators, noting that hundreds of millions of people watch gaming content on YouTube every day. Google's money-making opportunities in this are insane. Remember when Jensen talked about developers keeping their own economics? Google will, or at least can, charge a publisher fee, like Steam's 30%. It doesn't need to be anywhere near 30%, and likely won't be, which is one major reason again why developers will be looking really closely at Google's service. Another major reason is this. Remember right back to the beginning of the presentation when we saw the 5-second click to game? Listen to what Phil said again.
Our platform vision for Stadia is to reduce the friction between getting excited about a game and playing a game.
Google's real platform vision for Stadia is to reduce the friction between getting excited about a game and paying for a game. Paying, not playing. You start with a Play Now button and you end with a Pay Now button. There are plenty of studies out there showing that people are more likely to pay for something they just played or viewed and just enjoyed enough to want more and pay for it. This is also what game developers want, a whole new ways for games to be bought. So I do expect some publisher fee for Google or perhaps a game store, but the cash cow only begins there. Much of the service revolves around YouTube, which we all know is a free, ad-driven service. Free, ad-driven content is Google's main business model. Simply by uploading video to the service, you create content which displays ads, and both you and Google get paid. It's called AdSense, and there are various aspects of it, including AdSense for games. That's how many of these free-to-play games pay for themselves. But now consider this possibility. Stadia platform games themselves contain adverts through AdSense. Walking through streets at night? No reason why those neon signs shouldn't be for real products, with Google and the publisher getting a cut for every impression, just like with AdSense. And you know you like adverts so much, so you can watch adverts in a game while you watch adverts on a YouTube video of the game. Play now, buy now. Yo dog. The really great thing about in-game adverts? They can't be ad blocked. Oh, and you remember that stuff about style transfer ML, right? How about ad transfer ML? One day you're playing through a level and you get a Coca-Cola ad. The next day you get one for Pepsi. Same billboard or neon sign, different advertiser. Or how about product placements as part of the developer assets? You think that's far-fetched, do you? You probably would have thought this far-fetched last year. Facebook bought Oculus so they could run adverts in VR and AR. Stadia is massive multi-level marketing where gamers and publishers pay Google to develop, play and stream games while running ads on their own content. But do we care? Most of us are already PC gamers and likely couldn't care less about Geforce Now or any of the other failed game streaming services because they offered nothing new and made you pay for that privilege. We likely wouldn't even have bothered if it were a free service. The issue all previous game streaming services had though was we were wholly focused on the negatives. The latency mostly. Google Stadia, however, brings a whole new bunch of positives that we're unlikely to ever see on the desktop. Multiplayer will be taken to the next level, and persistent worlds too. But the latency, yep, I get it. The latency will never be as good as a desktop PC. But latency is just one aspect of gameplay. Developers will find a way to lessen the effects. Perhaps games will slow down, become less focused on Twitch gameplay, and more on strategy and tactics instead. This is something that I personally welcome. And something that us PC enthusiasts need to understand here is how consumer behaviour dictates products. You remember that old game, PUBG, right? Then we had Fortnite, and now it's Apex Legends. For some reason, everybody fell for Battle Royale, and now it's all that's being played. Does anybody even play League of Legends anymore? The next MOBA? The next Battle Royale. The next big genre is gonna be a game built for Stadia and a Stadia exclusive. And at that point, the player drain away from PC is inevitable. I would wager that the developer drain has already started. But you're still not convinced people are gonna pay twice. Once to play the game and again to stream it. Well, what if you don't have to pay the latter? Google has the infrastructure already in place. They don't need to pay carriers. They have the monetization in place through a game store, publisher fees, AdSense, selling controllers. There's another one. They probably don't even need to charge any fee for the service. Perhaps more likely though is they will offer different tiers. Perhaps there will be a free tier allowing access to certain games, or perhaps just for a couple of hours play per day. A normal tier for maybe $4.99 a month. It's not an awful lot of money, and many of us will pay it simply for the convenience of that play now on any device, and to access Stadia platform's unique games. Maybe Google could charge $9.99 a month for upgraded specs. Google will already know how to price it, but don't be surprised if they offer the service for free. But regardless of what they charge, we will all have a Stadia account of some description. All of us. Maybe they'll just give us one free with our YouTube accounts. And I am not just talking PC gamers either now. I am talking those 1 to 2 billion other people that Google are really targeting. See your sister who never played a high-end game in her life. She just picked up her tablet and started playing one 5 seconds later. Google got paid somehow, you can believe that. And chances are they made another customer for life. This will have far-reaching consequences for the rest of the industry. Stadia is the biggest threat to Nvidia in Nvidia's history, for sure. But Nvidia aren't the only company with problems, because Stadia is a war on everything we currently know about gaming. It's war on Microsoft and Sony. The next-gen game consoles already look old hat, and we don't even know the specs yet. It's war on Amazon and Twitch for streaming, and it's war on Steam from a publisher perspective. The battle for the billions has begun, and gaming will never be the same again. I'll catch you later, guys.